Hi everybody, Kerwin Rae here, author, speaker, investor and founder of Business Mastery International. And it's a very great pleasure of mine today to be interviewing someone that has been in my life now for about 3 years. The gentleman I'm about to introduce you to, Peter Solway. I first met at the age of 17. We attended one of our events. He's now 19. Since then he's done all of our programs. He now has, I think, about 3 different businesses and has created a phenomenal amount of success for a gentleman of his age. And it's with very great pleasure that I introduce you to Mr. Peter Solway. Peter, good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too, Kerwin.
It's great to have you here, mate.
Yeah, thanks.
So, mate, let me ask you the question. How did you get involved in being an entrepreneur at such an early age?
Oh, well, I sort of initially a little bit fell into it. I started off a business in the hope to fund my tennis career when I was younger. Ended up injuring the back after a while and started seeing a little bit of success in business, and I sort of thought, hey, this is actually really kind of fun. Taking your own accountability and making calls for yourself. It was kind of fun, and I sort of made a bit of money out of it. The tennis was gone, and that's where I sort of went, okay, what else is out there? You know, how can I grow myself further in this entrepreneurial space that at the time I wasn't overly familiar with it at the ripe age of 17.
Well, I have to say, at 17, you were still in high school in year 12 when we first met, is that right?
I was actually in year 11. I saw you at the Ultimate Success Summit back in 2010. And
with Richard Branson and Tony Robbins, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And when I was there, I was listening to all the different speakers, and when you got up on stage, I just sort of went, wow, you know, somebody thinks about money and business and wealth and success on such a high level. I'd never seen anything like it before, and I was like, I've got to get involved. So, that's when I signed up for business marketing and masterclass with the first few dollars I'd made out of that business. And definitely never looked back from the help and support you and your team at Kerwin Rae have provided.
Fantastic. And that was like almost 3 years ago now that you attended. For 2 years ago or 3 years ago?
2 years ago, yeah. I just turned 19, so I was just turned 17 back then.
When you attended your first masterclass. And what were the big takeaways that you took from masterclass when you first attended? Because you've attended a couple times now. Yeah. Well,
the first time when I was running through masterclass, wow, I was just like, there's so much out there. I guess I sort of, I'd played around a little bit, and I was really in a massive sort of overwhelm at the time. So I guess more the open-mindedness is what I got from that. Content-wise, it was really good, but because I was in year 11, I didn't have a lot of time to go and implement and things like that, which is where the benefit's been from coming back and doing the course. I've done it 3 times now, and each time I've looked at the content with fresh eyes, because I myself as a person have grown my business. I've been involved in different businesses. As you mentioned, I've run through a couple, and so now that I've done it a few times, I've really got my head around the content, and now I think where I'm really seeing some of the massive value is the networks that it's providing me. I've now found 2 of my advisory board members through the network of these courses that you run, because they do attract such a high caliber of people, which is really cool.
So what other concepts or content did you take away that you were really able to implement and get value from?
I think the main thing would be the psychology you have around wealth and growth. Having the ability to ride those sort of up and down waves that happen as an entrepreneur, I guess that would be sort of the foundation. And going from there, I guess basically now I feel like I can look at any business, my own, someone I meet down the road who's got a small business. I'm starting to now look at larger businesses where I can sort of go, well, that's really interesting. I wonder what would happen if they tried that. Anything from writing the ebooks, joint ventures. That's virtually how I've run my business. Not having a lot of startup cash, and being young. Obviously, sometimes it's tough being young out there. But if you go in there and you give it everything, and your sales techniques that you've sort of taught throughout those courses have definitely come in handy.
And what's been the impact of that? Because I know you've had 3 businesses now, is that right?
Yeah.
You've still got the 3 running?
I've shut one of them down because the market moved on from, I was in the GPS accessories and products game, so obviously now that's moved into smartphones now. So yeah, that's where I've taken that, sort of shut that down and opened up another end. I've got a tennis center that's running now.
One of the cute things I'm also curious about, you attended Power to Create as well.
Yeah.
And how was Power to Create for you as a program?
Oh, wow. it's literally changed the way who I am as a person, the way I look at life, the way I interact on a day-to-day basis. And I guess it's really taken things back to not just it's really cool to get out there and run a business and everything. I guess it's sort of taken it back to the fundamentals of, why am I in business? Why am I doing what I'm doing with my life? Why am I not going to university and running the typical life that a lot of Australian kids my age would be? And I guess having that, identifying the whys behind what I'm doing and sort of, I guess it sort of helps that passion run a little bit more, because when I get into things, I'm really ready to go. And geez, it really is hard to explain without being at the course. But I mean, coming away from it,
it's like the Matrix. It's very hard to explain without actually being there.
Yeah, that's definitely it. I mean, this year for Power to Create, I'm bringing along my girlfriend, because I've said things to her, but until she actually goes and experiences it, there's just a few bits and pieces of my life and who I am that she wants to understand, but I don't think she really can until she's been in that environment and been immersed in that. I think you'd really call it expanded awareness would be a really good way to describe it, because I just see things that I didn't see before.
Yeah. And that's obviously helped you in business. I think I remember you saying at one of the events, like you started practicing the tools and practicing the concepts that you learned, and from 3 months from when you started practicing, you actually doubled the revenues in your business.
Doubled my personal income, actually.
Doubled your personal income, yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty phenomenal.
That would probably be the same for the business as well. But yeah, personal income wise, it was like, I was sort of trickling along, making a little bit of money, and then it started to come into, a bit more of a solid income, and who knows what's next.
Mate, one thing I've always been really impressed about yourself, and I'm sure everyone watching this would probably agree, like you're 19, you definitely don't come across as a 19-year-old. It's almost like I'm talking to a 30, 35-year-old in some respects, unless you've seen him drink tequila, then it's a totally different story. But what is it, that at the age of 17 that makes you so different from everyone else? And I should probably point out here, your parents weren't my biggest fan. I'm hoping they're probably a little bit more of my fans now, because they wanted you to go to university. And I'm sure there's a lot of people, maybe even young people out there, who can relate to that, and probably even people who have been to university who've maybe thought, I wish I didn't actually go to university, maybe applied that time and that effort to other things. But what was it that, as a 17-year-old, that made you think so differently? To go, you know what, I don't want to go to university, I want to invest that time and that money in education in business. What was the thought process behind this?
When I really put effort in at school, I'd perform. I was at the top of the class, I was doing really well, and I sort of hit a point where it was like I was just working really, really hard and getting these results on paper, and it was like, it was like, I'm sure there's so much more to this, because anybody can learn something in a textbook. What else is out there? And I guess when I started going to your courses and educating myself in the space, I sort of went, hold on a second, like, yeah, there's don't get me wrong, there is a lot of benefit to uni, and I've seen, different friends of mine getting some great benefit out of it. But for me, I really like getting in there and actually doing things, and I just thought it was too much of a theoretical path. And I guess the other thing that was sort of really fundamental was I sort of thought to myself, if I do anything, I want to do it at the highest level.
Right.
And I mean, that sort of happened with my tennis. I wanted to do it at the highest level, so I needed the funding. And coming back to business, I've gone, well, if I'm going to commit to this, I want to do it at the highest level, not at give it a half job. So that's when I went, okay, who's the most successful business people I know at the moment or can get my hands on? Who are they? And you were one of them at the time, and still are, and I mean, there's a few other people out there that I've got as mentors, and I just sort of thought, why not learn from them, the people who are out there right now in the marketplace, right now generating the wealth and success that I'm after. Yeah. Let's go and learn from them, rather than maybe someone who's been there, done that, because the market changes. And
but you've got to admit, and I hope you would probably maybe see this, and on reflection, it's a very strange thought process for a 19-year-old, let alone a 17-year-old. Like, I've often said to my teams, my fiance, to even some of my capital advisors, like, oh my God, if only I was where you were now when I was 19. What is it that makes you, this way at such an early age? Like, obviously you're hungry to learn and experience, but how do you think differently?
I guess from a young age, I've always sort of felt a little bit on the outsides. Like I always felt like I looked at a bigger purpose, or why am I doing whatever I'm doing? Where can I go? What can I achieve? What can I create? And everybody else was just sort of, always living in the moment. I love living in the moment, but I guess it's like I want a combination of having that, in the moment passion, but aligned with a purpose that's bigger than just, that night's tequila shot, or you know what I mean? Like it's fun at the time, but the next morning you look at it in hindsight and you're like, oh, I'm a bit hungover, huh? Yeah. So I guess I look at going, well, let's get drunk for 5 minutes, or let's tone it down a little bit and live a continuity. I don't know if that's the right word, but
sustainable.
Yeah, live a sustainable level of success, enjoyment.
Did you at school sometimes notice that you were quite different from your peers and quite different from other kids like you?
Yeah, definitely.
Because it's interesting. That's one thing I've noticed interviewing entrepreneurs. I know this from my own experiences. A lot of entrepreneurs that I've spoken to, when they're at school, they felt very different from everyone else, almost like there was something wrong with them. Can you relate to that on some level?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially when I was a lot younger, around the age of about sort of 5 to 10, I really felt sort of on the outside. I learned how to sort of fit in a little bit at school, but I mean, as soon as I hit the entrepreneurial space, talking to like-minded people, I went, wow, this is where I fit in.
How old were you when you started thinking, got into the entrepreneurial space, like started thinking like an entrepreneur?
Started thinking like an entrepreneur, I guess consciously, 17, when I started getting involved with your stuff. But it was probably when I started traveling the world by myself when I was 15. My parents had run out of money and they were like,
You started traveling the world by yourself at 15?
Yeah, they were sort of running low on cash and sort of said, Peter, we're really struggling. So I went, this is what I want, I'm going to do whatever it takes. So I went out and I raised sponsorship funds. I raised money from different Reesby Workers Club, Peter Bullfrog Moore Foundation. I got sponsored by Head. I was selling chocolates at school. I was doing whatever I could to...
So you actually, and this is at 15?
Yeah.
So your entrepreneurial journey didn't really start at 17. It really started like at the age of around 15 when you really started learning how to raise money and sell things.
Well, see, that was the starting point, but I think the thing that gave me the most... I guess what I needed to move forward in such a, like you say, different manner to most people was, I remember I just turned 16, raised this money. I went away for a month by myself, no parents, limited budget of what I'd raised. And I tell you what, that was an experience. $10 a night youth hostels, working out cheap cabs, getting rides off people.
This is by yourself, no friends, no guardians, no teachers, nothing, was it?
I mean, I'd been at that time, I'd been around with a few coaches before, so I was just like, what can I remember? What can I, what did they do? How did they, keep costs low? And I guess.
So being 15 years of age, traveling overseas for a month on your own, that's got to make someone, grow up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So I suppose when you now look at yourself on reflection as a kid, at the age of 15 and 17, what do you think that made you different? Was there a certain drive that you had, or a certain set of values that you have, or a certain set of beliefs that you have that you still have today that kind of pushed you in the direction?
I think it was the drive mostly. It's because I sort of, coming back to what I was saying before, like, if I set my mind on something, I go, I want to do this, I want to do it at the highest level.
Right.
I see other people out there who are happy with their lives, with their jobs, and that's totally cool, but that's not for me. Right. I've always felt that there's some sort of a bigger picture to play, something more I can contribute, something more I can enjoy, something more that I can, I guess, express to the world.
And what if you were like maybe speaking to yourself at the age of 13, 14, 15, or speaking to a group of young kids at that age, what would be the one or two or maybe three things that you would suggest to them if they were interested in becoming an entrepreneur that they should do to really follow that path and explore that opportunity?
First thing would be definitely open-mindedness. Just look at the world however you want to. There's so many things that society ingrain in you that you've got to go to school, you've got to, you've got to go to uni, you've got to live life a certain way. And I mean, that is, it works for the masses, but I mean, that doesn't stop any individual going out there and going, you know what, I think this is the way life should be lived. And I mean, I'm not saying that in the context, I mean, I've seen a few people that go out there and there are a few sort of crazy kids my age that go and do, really stupid things, but if you're doing it in the right context where you're going, you know what, based on my understanding
with the right intent.
with the right intent.
Yeah.
If you've got the right intent and, you want to give something else a go, I'll tell you what, it's not going to be easy because you're going to have everybody else around you telling you this is.
You should be going to uni, you should get yourself a part-time job.
Your HSC is the most important thing in the world and things like that. And then I sort of started questioning it because I went, hold on a second. How many people that get 98, 99 in their HSC or in their high school or university careers go on to make the most money and success and wealth for themselves? And I go, hold on a second, there's a bit of a disparity here. You can go and be a doctor, spend 10 years, you're saving people's lives, and that is phenomenal. Hats off to them. But they're certainly not making what a Richard Branson or a Kerwin Rae or anybody else is doing. And I just sort of went, you know what, I could do that, but I'd prefer, I think this is calling me a little bit more.
So number one, have an open mind. What would be the second piece of advice you'd give to somebody?
Don't let society's views bog you down. Make your own calls. You know what I mean? Be responsible for them. I've made plenty of mistakes. I'm sure you have too, Kerwin. But
I think that's how we get here. But one thing I've noticed about you, and this is really something important to point out to everyone who's watching this, I know we've talked about some of the mistakes that you've made, but in every situation when we talk about them, you never lay blame. You always accept full responsibility for yourself. So is that something that you found as an important part, especially as an entrepreneur at any age, is to be able to accept responsibility for everything you do?
Yeah, accept responsibility and then look at it in a positive frame, which I think is something that I definitely learned from you, was like, when something negative happens to you, it's like, this is just what's, I guess, not got to, but it's part of the process to move you to that next level of wherever you want to be. And you can choose to dwell on it and get upset about it. And, sometimes all of us do. But you've got the choice of dwell on it and live an average life, or pick yourself back up, find something else that you want to do, or a better way to approach the situation. Or
a better perspective to have on the situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I know that's something that we've talked about before, that every situation is neutral. Every situation is essentially neutral until we give it meaning. It's just oftentimes we give it a bad meaning and we hang on to that. But oftentimes if we look at both sides, we can see that there's a bigger picture there. And so let's look at some of the mistakes that you've made. Biggest mistake you've ever made as an entrepreneur, what was it?
Biggest mistake, but biggest blessing was actually getting started. I got started in, to be honest, the most stupid concept of a business ever. I wanted to sell GPSs on the internet through dropshipping, which now that I look at it, I go, that was the most stupid thing you could ever do. How on earth is some little guy who's 15 got it was horrible website, going to be able to compete with Dick Smith and JB Hi-Fi and everything else like that. And, in hindsight, it was the stupidest but the most smart thing I ever did.
So biggest mistake and what was the mistake in that?
The mistake was I had no content behind the business idea. It was just, I needed to make money, what can I do sort of thing. It wasn't, I didn't look at it from, this is a business I actually want to be in, this has actually got, market viability, this is actually something I want to do. It was more, it was a means to sort of funding the tennis, which was my overall goal, which now that I look at it, it's like, the lengths that I went to really go after what I wanted is really cool.
So biggest mistake, starting a business with not enough content or not in the right market.
Yeah.
Biggest lesson from that?
Oh, becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Going after life and doing what I want, making my own calls and getting into this whole journey. Right. Journey would definitely be the word.
Second biggest mistake you've ever made is on your entrepreneurial path?
Ooh. Not understanding what I was getting myself into. I guess that a little bit streams from the first one, but I've had business situations where I've sort of, got it really in the moment and all excited, and I'm just like, yep, let's sign on the dotted line, let's go ahead with everything, and then I look back in hindsight in a more sort of...
We're talking contracts here.
Yeah.
We were having this discussion earlier, right?
Yeah. And in hindsight, being in a more neutral space, I now look at it and go, oh man, what was I thinking?
So second biggest mistake, not understanding the details, you probably agree. And what was the lesson from that?
The lesson, definitely, before you commit to something, remove the hype from it. Remove the, because there is always that, really, like I'm an optimist. I love to look at the best situation of things.
There's always two sides to everything.
There is,
yeah.
And I guess that it's getting that balance. So I can look at something really optimistically or something really pessimistically, but sitting in that mutual space, which I definitely have learnt to do a lot better now. I mean, I'm no expert, but Power to Create, that's something that's definitely delivered there, is teaching that neutral space. And now that I'm able to look at things in a more, looking at the details, looking at and really understanding what I'm getting myself into.
Yep.
I think that's really going to help me moving forward.
Biggest success?
So
far?
Biggest success.
Would it have been doing a month's worth of revenue in 2 days?
That'd be up there.
Yep.
I think that'd probably have to come second to when I hit that stage of doubling my income, because it went from a stage of, the business is running and I wasn't really paying myself much, and it was just sort of like it was a learning thing. I was using it as more of a learning tool than something serious, and I went and I just had a point where I went, you know what, I'm calling this my profession, my full-time passion, but at the moment the bank really says it's a hobby.
Yep.
And I went,
interesting.
I've got to commit, and that's when I sort of I went then and there. I went, right, I'm going to make sure I pay myself X amount more over, and I had no idea how I was going to make the money. I just went,
This is really interesting. You made a commitment that you were going to pay yourself.
Yeah.
Because this is something as entrepreneurs you've probably seen from your own experience. I've seen this in thousands of different cases where entrepreneurs often don't pay themselves. They just run their business. And as a result, they never really draw any money out of the business or make a real, make any real income or build any real wealth. So the moment you made a decision and you said, you know what, I'm going to commit to paying myself a wage, how long did it take before you doubled your personal income?
A month.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's where I went out and I just went, I got no idea how I'm going to do this, but here's the goals. I've got to make, X amount within 2 months. I go, this is how I think I'm going to do it. I'm going to try, give this a go, give that a go. And I did, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. I can make money that fast. That's really cool. And
biggest lesson from that?
Biggest lesson from that. Set yourself up for success. Stop. Yeah, you can run things, over and over and over again, and I guess it's checking in with yourself and going, where's that point? Right, I'm at a new stage. I've got to go and change something, because you can keep running it, and if it's doing all right, it's doing all right. And like I said, that's cool for some people, but from an entrepreneur and from somebody that really wants to play at the highest level of business, I really think just regularly checking in with yourself and going, right, what's the next thing that I can do, or what's the next crazy thing I can give a go? And I mean, yeah, sure, I've had a few times where I've done that sort of thing and I've gone and stuffed up, but when you have the successes after it, it's kind of worth it when you look at it from hindsight.
Okay, so I suppose in terms of, let's play a little bit of a word association game now. Like, when you think of failure, what does failure mean to you?
Failure means ouch, but what's next?
Right. So it's not game over for you. It's what's next.
It might be game over of that section of life, or that strategy, or that skill, or that whatever that thing is. It's like, right, that's tried and failed, or that's something that I can use to learn from or build from. But yeah, definitely not that's it. I mean, if I did that, geez, I don't know where I'd be in life.
So it's fair to say that you have failed a lot in order to get where you are.
Yeah.
And it's probably fair to say that is the path of the entrepreneur. The path of the entrepreneur is to fail as much as possible, as quickly as possible, to get to the outcome. And I think that's something a lot of people... The outcome. And the outcome is a journey. There is no definite outcome. Yeah. So I suppose moving forward for here, what's the future hold for Peter Solway?
The future. Right now, get the two businesses I've got really running systematically, so that I'm sort of touching them where I need to, not putting a lot of hours into them each week, which I think has sort of successfully happened with my tennis centre. Yep. With my distribution business, it's still got a few nuts and bolts kinks to sort out, which I think should happen in the next 2 months. Moving forward from that, I'm really starting to get interested in the higher level of business, into venture capital and corporate finance and stuff that's, I've played around at a really cool level for my age, but it's like, all right, this is not a couple of years sort of thing. This is a lifetime vision. I don't want to, make a lot of money in 2 years if I can make huge volumes of money or success or wealth, and be able to, make an impact on the world after 10, 15, 20 years.
Right. So you've got a very long-term perspective.
Well, I think that's what you've got to have. If you're going to get up every morning and it's like, oh yeah, 2 years time, that's it, that's my thing. And I mean, when I was younger, I was sort of a little bit blind. And I went, I want to be retired by the time I'm 30 to 40 years old. How cool would that be? Now I go, oh man, how could anybody ever retire? It's like, what a horrible concept. I mean, I look at Richard Branson and I go, that's what I want to be. I want to be 60, 70 years old, just doing deals. you know, maybe by that time I might be into a bit more philanthropic work, which would be really cool. But I mean, right now, let's go and have some success so that I'm able to do that.
Okay, and I think that's a really important note to point out, and that's something I've observed having profiled thousands of the wealthiest people on the planet. And even Napoleon Hill talks about it in Think and Grow Rich, which I think we have somewhere behind us here. But he says in Think and Grow Rich that, you know, what he's observed of the 500 wealthiest people at the time, which was, you know, around 1900 to 1927, was the majority of them, if not all of them, especially the ones that didn't inherit it, really developed most of their wealth, or I should say started to develop most of their wealth between the ages of 45 and 55, which, you know, is framed around exactly what you said. It's a long-term play. And I think that's a big mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs make of every age, is like you said, I'm going to be a billionaire in 2 years' time, or even a millionaire in 2 years' time. And as a result, they find themselves jumping from one thing to the next. But you've also got interest in, you know, perhaps doing some stuff in Silicon Valley. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, the one thing that really attracts me about Silicon Valley is the atmosphere and the culture they've got over there. I mean, over here in Australia, I did really feel a little bit alone coming to your courses and things like that. It's really opened my mind to other entrepreneurs out there, which is really cool. But I think the thing is, there's still such a gap between where Australia's at. You know, we've got a little bit too much tall poppy syndrome going around, that sort of thing. I think what I'd really love to do is sort of catch a bit of that Silicon Valley bug and bring it over to Australia and provide that, so that, you know, if you want to raise capital or you want to really do something world changing, you can do it from here. You know, you can have you can have some part of your team in Silicon Valley or different parts of the world where there's those growth areas and whatnot, but you know, to be able to do it from Australia, I mean, especially with Asia being so close in our vicinity and them having some, you know, really cool potential economic growth. I mean, that's something that you know, being positioned where we are with the economy that we've got, you know, we're integrated into, you know, countries like the US, but at the same time we've got that proximity to Asia. So if we were able to, you know, really get the entrepreneurial space, the business, you know, venture capital, corporate finance type space over here, killing it, I think that'd really be good, not just for Australia, but the whole world.
Again, it's like I'm talking to a 35-year-old or 45-year-old. Top 3 skills that you would encourage every person who is either on the path to be an entrepreneur or is considering the path to be an entrepreneur. Top 3 skills you would suggest that they learn.
Oh, just going out and doing it.
Okay.
Just absolutely, like, when you're scared, when you're really, like, when you got that, you feel sick in the stomach, and you know it's something you want to do or it's the right thing to, just do it.
Right.
You know, you might stuff it up, you might do terrible, but you'll look back and you go, wow, next time I do that, I'm going to kill it. Or you'll go, you know what, that actually wasn't for me.
Yep.
So having that's really cool. The next thing would be negotiation skills. That has definitely been what I think has helped me get to where I am so far. The ability to sort of go into a situation and not be dictated to by the other person, stand my ground and say, no, this is what I'm here for, you know, but being able to take it to...
Do you think it's important to have flexibility in your approach when negotiating?
Oh, definitely, definitely. You've got to have flexibility, but at the same time, you've got to stand up for yourself. I think that's the thing is I see so many, you see the two ends of the pendulum. You've got the people who are like, no, this is it, this is how it's got to be, no flexibility. You've got the others who are like, oh yeah, that sounds good. You know, you've got to get that balance, and I think that's something that I've definitely seen prominent in the way you seem to do business is I'll notice, you know, you've got this is the level I'm at, this is, you know, how I do business, but at the same time, if something's going to work better for the both parties, then you're open to doing that, and I think I've taken that on board, and I hope that I continue to get better at that, and that's something I definitely recommend
so number
to
one
others.
skill, take action, get off your ass and do something. Number 2, learn how to negotiate. What would be the 3rd skill you'd say people should go out and learn?
The longer term vision, like what we've been talking about, just not just sitting there and going, you know, I'm going to be a millionaire in a year. And I mean, look, if you can, cool, that's amazing, you know. But there's only so many Facebooks out there. There's, you know, it takes a real sort of everything, the stars aligning for that to happen. So yeah, if you can do that, awesome. But if not, I think having that longer term vision, I mean, like you keep saying, you say that I come across as older than my years, and I think that's the thing is a lot of younger entrepreneurs get a bit stuck up in the, you know, caught up in the hype, rather than, you know, I'm committing to this. This is a lifelong process. This isn't just a, you know, a cool gimmick for a while.
It's like going to the gym. A lot of people talk about losing weight, but very few people actually apply themselves, go to the gym, eat the food that's required in order to do it.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to get caught up in the hype of becoming a millionaire, but the practice is something that's very different. That's fantastic. Well, Pete, it's great to have you here. For those of you who want more information, where would they better find more information about you?
More information about me, you can check out my personal blog site, www.petersolway.com. Otherwise, look me up on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. Get connected.
Yeah, he's under Facebook under the Tequila Man. Pete, it's been great having you in the studio today. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And first of all, one of the things I'd like to say, it's been a privilege to be a part of your journey and actually see where you've come from. That that bright-eyed, a little bit naive 17-year-old to this incredibly wise young man for where you are right now. It's an honor and privilege to be a part of that. I just want to thank you for coming in and thank you for sharing your story. And for those of you who want more information, please visit kerwinrae.com. And again, I'd just like to thank Peter for coming in today, mate. Always good to have you here, mate.
Thanks, Kerwin.
Cheers, mate. All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see you real soon.